Syllabus Part 3, Assignments and Grading Scale. I want to give you a brief overview of what we're going to be covering during this course on a week-by-week basis. In general, this course is graded on a 1,000-point scale, and you earn points from attendance, which is about 10 points for just going online and posting on the discussion board. That's what I'm using for your participation, or actually being available during the online course, the live session, excuse me. You also earn 10 points for taking the online quiz each week. I'm sorry, 20 points. 10 points for the first week because it's really, really simple, just to see if you could actually do it. 20 points following that. Again, the quizzes are unlimited times you can take it. So if you only get 0 right out of 5 questions, you can take it again and again until you get 100%. The lab exercises and homework, the first week is only 10 points because it's really simple, but it's going to be 25 points most of the weeks during this course. The midterm project is an installation of WordPress, and you'll be able to go ahead and earn 100 points for the midterm projects just to demonstrate your skill of the installation. And your final project isn't too much different from the midterm project, but what you're going to need to do is you've got a WordPress installation plus a third-party plugin and a third-party theme installed, plus to be able to make a backup of the entire site so that it can be migrated somewhere else. So that's a rough breakdown of the points. Let me go week by week of how we're going to accomplish all this. As mentioned before, you can end up seeing what activity needs to be done on the right-hand side over here. So for the first week, 10 points for attendance, 10 points for the quiz, 10 points for homework, and a rough outline of how we're doing an introduction into WordPress and introduction to web development. And your homework is basically to send a screenshot. And your homework for the future for week 3 is you need to find a web hosting service. That way we can end up putting in the week 3 assignment. Week 2, we're going to discuss the XAMPP installation. I may try to just actually show you some of the stuff beforehand. And I'll provide some demonstrations of how the final project will look when it's coded. And again, I'm working with WordPress 5 now, so some of the items that I'm coming through may be quite a bit different than what I previously showed in some of the material, but we'll work through that. So your homework is to do an XAMPP installation and so on. And again, points are listed on the right. You can see 55 points can be earned for week 2. Week 3, just a reminder that Friday is a holiday for week 3. And we're going to be using FTP, probably FileZilla, to show a demonstration of how to move files from your local system to the remote one. Week 4, Monday is a holiday, George Washington Day, so we probably will not have a virtual online session on that week. But you're free to go ahead and go through and ask questions on the discussion board, and I can also post some answers for you. We'll go through the WordPress installation on XAMPP, kind of go step by step. We'll show a demonstration of cPanel, where your remote host might give you some capabilities. Finding FTP account info, finding database info. This is used to, when we do an installation of WordPress, we're going to need to find out where the database is and where the remote server is. Week 5, WordPress installation on the remote server. So we're going to take you to how to install it by FTP and doing the exact same thing we did on our XAMPP and do it remotely. There is some difficulties in moving some files and so forth, or the WordPress instance from local to remote, but we will cover that in this course. Week 6, we go through some of the basics of how to use WordPress. Before we start adding on something fancy, we need to know what WordPress is capable of doing on its own. you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Like for example, there are different types of user access that you have. And since it already exists, you don't need to create a plugin to change that. But if it's limited on what you want to do, you could actually add on more through a plugin. And if the design doesn't display what you want, we could add to the theme to do that. Week 7, we're going to talk about how to install some third-party themes and plugins. This is a pretty easy task to do. And the next week we have the midterm project that's due. And during the midterm project, when that gets uploaded, I'm going to give you kind of a primer, kind of a preview of what is going to be, when we go to the plugins and the themes, we're going to need to know a little bit about PHP and how to inject some PHP into our code. So I'll give you kind of a brief primer on how to use PHP. If you don't know that information, that's not too bad. I can end up doing a copy and paste on most of the material that you have. Then we have a break. We have a spring break, the last week in March. Week 9 is when the second half of this course, starting with week 9, we're going to get into the theme and plugin development. And building a theme is kind of a multi-step process. So week 9, we're going to talk about how to use child themes and widget areas. So knowing how to use a new theme and how to get the widgets to show up in different areas like a calendar or a search field. Those items can be done even without any coding at all. Week 10 is when we begin kind of a 4-part series on how to build a theme. First part is converting our HTML into PHP. Second one is to convert our static HTML into a theme. And then the third part is also still converting the static HTML to a theme, but adding in WordPress functions for dynamic content. So it's kind of like the first 3 steps are mainly how do I turn my HTML design into a theme, and I have to kind of be strategic on that too, to say which part is the menu, which part is the sidebar, which portion is going to be the header and the footer. Those kind of things need to be taken care of, but we'll discuss it in more detail as we go through the weeks. Take a quick diversion on week 13 to talk about plugins. And the reason for that is because we need to know a little bit about PHP and plugins before we do part 4. So week 14, we finally finish up our customized theme and add in widgets and shortcodes. Week 13 is more of a free week so that you can end up working on your final projects. And I'll be available to help you if you end up having some difficulty completing it. And on week 16, when you submit your presentations, I encourage you to post it on the discussion board and share it with the rest of the class. And I can give you extra points for sharing your presentation with the other students. Hopefully we'll be able to go through and review some of the items that we have, and we'll learn together as we go through. The parts about the plugins and the themes, one point I want to mention is in previous classes, it's easier to learn collectively than to learn individually. An example is there may be 1,000 themes and 1,000 plugins that are available for WordPress. If you did it all by yourself, you could do your own review of them, but it's much better and easier to rely on your fellow classmates or previous classmates that have installed a theme and a plugin combination and to see if there was any problems with it. They might say, this plugin's great, this theme is great, but when I put it together, it does not work. And here are the challenges that you have to deal with. The review that you have for your final presentation will be very helpful to both yourself and for the rest of the class when we go through. So that's a breakdown of what we're going to be covering week by week in this course. And I'm looking forward to seeing you online as we continue through. Take care.